have you ever been sucked into social media's ad or this? I'm scrolling, picture, video, advertisement, and then I come across this meal. It's a video of them putting together some food, and I go, oh, that's interesting. That looks like it could taste good. And they put out all these lies. They're like, it's easy. It's simple. It takes like 5 minutes. You can do it with your eyes closed. You only need 2 ingredients. And have you ever been suckered into that where you're like, oh, this might be good? And so you're watching this skillet or this bowl, Actually, you start with the skillet, so it's like, tastes really good. You're like, ooh, that'll be good. And then they're like, yeah, all you need are these 3 ingredients, and you put them in a bowl, and you stir, and then you add these 5 more ingredients, and then you take that and you put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then you grab these, and you start doing that, and you turn on the stove, and you put it here, and pour the milk, and the eggs, and the orange juice, and then you start going, what ingredient did they just put in there? And then all of a sudden you're like, I am never going to do this. How have I been watching this video this long? It's only halfway over. Am I the only one that's done that? And I'm annoyed and frustrated that I got caught. And I'm going, no one in their right mind will do this meal. No one who has 6 kids is doing this. I mean, this is not happening. It's like, this takes like days of preparation and work. And I scroll frustrated. I think there's a lot of Christians that experience that when they come into the faith. I think we come into Christians' lives and we're going, it's so easy. It's so easy. All you have to do is accept Jesus. That's it. You accept Jesus and you're in. That's all you have to do. You just say this one prayer, you do this one thing, you're in. And they're like, okay. And so they dive in. They're all aboard. And then we start pulling out more things. Like, okay, now you also, you need to make sure you're in church. And they're like, yeah, I'll show up on Sunday. I work now every other Sunday. And we go, oh, well, we will make you feel very shameful for working every other Sunday. So we'll let you still come, but you have to feel bad about it. Like, oh, okay. And we also want you, not only Sunday morning, we want you Sunday night and Wednesday night and the Tuesday morning Bible study, and you have to help with these mission projects, and you have this over here. Basically, you need to give us your life. Okay, give us your whole calendar, we'll fill it up for you. And they're like, oh. And if I don't, I'm like, yeah, you're not really on fire for Jesus. Okay, fine, here it goes. I'm like, okay, now we also need to talk about all the rules of how to live as a Christian. I'm like, okay, I think I know a lot of them, though. I know not to steal and lie. And like, yeah, well, you know a lot of the Bible rules, the rules that bother Jesus, but there's just a lot of things that bother us in America as Christians, So we don't want you to get a tattoo. The Bible's against tattoos? No. The Bible, we sometimes take this Old Testament passage out of context just to show our disapproval. But we don't like it. So what if I already have one? Don't show us. And always feel bad about it. Just feel remorse for it. Okay. Anything else? Yes. We also don't want you drinking at all. Didn't Jesus turn water into wine? No, it doesn't matter. We're American Christians. We don't like drinking at all. We won't even put it for communion, okay? We're using grape juice, because we are the biggest prudes ever. So no drinking at all of any kind. And if you do, definitely don't tell anyone else about it. Keep it a secret. No smoking, no tobacco, don't play cards, no dancing, no rated R movies. Like, oh no, what is it? And it's like they got sucked into some video. And they're like going, I can't do all this. It's more of a burden on me to try to live this out. And they're overwhelmed and they're frustrated and they don't measure up. And they look around at all these perfect families, or at least they assume they're all perfect because they're hearing the message and assuming if these people are all here and they're all matched that message, then they're all perfect. I'm not. I don't belong here. I need to leave. And they don't know just how messed up all of us are. And I think that's a reason a lot of people will leave a church. They'll just kind of drift away. It's a fear of failure and even maybe the reality of failure. They blow it and they're ashamed and they don't want to come back. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sermon series just on the main ingredients. And I want to just start with our Christian faith. what are the main ingredients of our faith? Instead of throwing 5,000 rules at someone, what's the sum total of what it means to be a Christian? And so I want to talk about what Christians do. What's the meat? What do we actually do? How do we actually feel? What do Christians feel, and what are we passionate about? And number 3, how do we think? And there's a prophet, Micah, that summed it all up in a very popular verse. He summed up, this is basically what we do, this is how we feel, and this is how we think. He does it in dramatic format in Micah chapter 6, starting with verse 6, I'll read. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? He's exaggerating now. Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And Micah, it's this extreme. He's going, what do we bring to God, this powerful God? Do I bring all this stuff, these rivers of oil, 10,000 rivers? Do I offer my firstborn? What do you want? This is the main ingredients. And if you do these 3, you'll see that almost all the law and all of God's desire for his followers stem from these 3 areas. This is basically what we do, this is how we feel, and this is how we think. First is what we do. He says, I want you to act justly. There's a way I want you to behave, and some activity I want you to be involved in. And that is be involved in justice. When I hear justice, I usually think of punishment. I'm thinking of a judge, guilty, that's justice. But justice is about making life fair. It's making life fair. And we live in a cutthroat, dog-eats-dog world. And there are many in our world that are at a disadvantage. And what Micah concludes, as he's looking at what is the heart of being a follower of our God, the activity that we are involved in as we are walking around as justice warriors. We act justly. We notice those who are at a disadvantage because our eyes are looking for it. And we enter their life and we try to make life more fair. Now, in ministry, 25 years, I have had hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people come and ask me requests for help. I get it all the time. Everywhere I go, everyone's saying, I'm looking for a pastor. Is there a pastor? I hate that question. Looking for a pastor? It's like, I want to hide. Oh no, someone's looking for a pastor. That means they want everything I have. Oh no. Oh, requests for food, requests for gas, for requests for car repairs, requests for utilities or rent or hotels, and it always comes with a long story of, hey, my buddy, I had a job over here, but my sister died, and everyone's mourning the funeral's tomorrow, but I have to get there by this date, and I can't do. It's like, and it's so much of a story. It's like you want to give them money, just say, stop the story. Stop it. It's too terrible of a story. Just here, take it. I don't need this anymore. I have found something, and this is just me, and I don't mean to ruffle any feathers at all, because I think God deals with a lot of us differently, but I have found usually the people that need the help the most are usually the ones not able to even ask for it. Those that are truly at a disadvantage are not coming over asking for something. It's usually I have to go find them. I have to have my eyes open and looking around. Who is at a disadvantage here? Who needs help? And how can I enter their life and provide this? And it's not always money. Sometimes it's wisdom. Sometimes it's time, friendship, encouragement. I think there's 4 people that I in my life that I always try to look for. These are my 4 disadvantaged people that I think really sums up the heart of the Old Testament in all these commands. This acting justice is one, it's children. Children who are at a disadvantage, especially those who are orphans, or for us, foster kids, or kids that are growing up in broken homes. And whenever we walk through life, as we're going through, we have to always have our eyes open for children because no one else can speak for them. Of all the people I've had, and I've had people cuss me out, I've had people yell at, I've had so many people ungrateful. There's one time I didn't help someone, and even doing this message this last week, I thought of her again. It was a young college girl, just a young lady, and I was in a hurry running into Target. I was living in a part in Columbus where I had a lot of people always asking for stuff, and I'm going in Target, and she approached me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to get back to my dorm room." And I went, "Oh, I don't have any cash." She went, "Oh, okay." And I went back in, and I went into Target. And as I'm walking through Target, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have cash, but I'm going into a store. I drove here. Wait, she needs to get back to her dorm? This is a young lady." And I started getting more stressed. I was there going, I just left this young lady outside. What was I thinking? I just turned her down like that. And I ran out, and she's gone. And I always thought, I should have made sure she got home safe. When there's a child, when there's someone who's younger than us that is in despair of whatever kind, we're the ones, Christians, that should be acting justly. We ought to notice, and we ought to go over and say, "Oh, you don't have a father? I'll be your father. You don't have a mother? I'll be your mother. You need some resources? I'll do my best to provide." And because that's what the followers of God, that's what we do. Number 2 for my list, children. My second are the elderly, especially widows. Especially widows. There's a lady that was in Columbus who was 98 years old. She was our door greeter. In fact, her and our other door greeter both turned 100 at the same time, and they're still shaking hands at one of our entrances. We had 3 entrances to our church building, and you'd come to one. It was 2 ladies that at one point would be 100 years old greeting you. It's like if you can't serve at church, they can serve. Anyone can serve, right? Wonderful, wonderful ladies. Well, when she was 98, her apartment building caught on fire. She was home on the 3rd floor. Firemen came and knocked on the door and said, "Ma'am, you need to get out. The building's on fire." And she went, "Oh, I'll probably never make it in time." That was Louise for you. And he said, No, ma'am. You need to get out. Here, I'll carry you out." And so he took her over to the stairs, and he said, "Here, you just put your arms around my shoulders." And he lifted her up, and he carried her down 3 flights of stairs. And that's what we should be doing for anyone who's older than us. We ought to, if there is an older woman living on your street, you ought to know her name. You ought to know if she's getting her yard mowed. You ought to know how she's getting her groceries. You ought to check in on her fairly regularly and get to know her, because that's what Christians do. That's our activity. We're looking out for those who might be at a disadvantage. Number 3, we're looking out for anyone who's disabled. Anyone who, boy, isn't that the life of Jesus, just hanging around all these disabled people? It's like every miracle, it's like 80% of his miracles are healing someone who's disabled. It's like he's walking through life going, people aren't supposed to be blind, healed. People aren't supposed to be lame, healed. People aren't supposed to have leprosy, healed. People aren't supposed to have withered arms, stretch it out. And he's going around just healing everyone. It's like he had this big heart for those who are disabled, and that is where we ought to gravitate. We have to always be on the lookout for those who are disadvantaged, and it's those oftentimes who are disabled. And if you know someone who's disabled, you ought to be drawing and leaning in, not scooching away. And finally, for me, it's the fourth one, is anyone in an emergency. If there's an emergency, you go. If there's an emergency, you drop everything and you just help. I am a product now of so many men and women who dropped everything and just came 16 years ago today, on the worst night of my life, and I don't remember what almost anyone said, but I remember every single person that showed up, and I remember everyone who didn't show up. And I remember the funeral. I don't remember anyone that said anything, but I remember everyone who was there, and I remember everyone who wasn't there. Hundreds of people going by, I remember. And if there's someone who has an emergency going on, you just go. You don't go with all these fears that you don't have the right wisdom or something to say. You just show up and go, here I am. I hurt for you right now. I'm here for you. And whatever the emergency, because we have all kinds of emergencies in our life, if it's a true emergency, we help. Now, not only do we see here there's a main ingredient on what we're supposed to do, there's also a way we're supposed to feel, which is kind of funny if you think about the way Hollywood might portray love. It's supposed to be something that just sweeps us away. It's like, oh no, Dad, I fell in love with this person. Sorry, he's a jerk and he's a bum. And it's like you just swept away with love. And love is something you can control. Love is something you can aim and you can go, I'm going to love this way, or this is my standards. And it's more controllable than we say. And we have evidence here. In fact, I imagine here, I want you to love this character trait. I want you to love this characteristic. It's like, oh no, I fell in love with murder. Oh man, sorry, it swept me away. I always wanted you to love something wonderful like forgiveness. Sorry, Dad, I love murder. It's like I want you to love this character trait. And here it is. I want you to love mercy. Love it. The Hebrew word for mercy here is just the word for kindness. Just you love when people are kind. Our world needs more kindness in it. I tell you, one thing, I've heard people are the same everywhere you go. My mom taught me that. She's like, people are the same everywhere you go. Because you're always taking you with you and your attitude. And if you look out and you see people in this kind of light, you're going to go somewhere else. And I always thought that was basically true. And then I went to a lot of different places and found, no, people are different in different parts of the country. They really are. There's parts of the country where people here are kind of rude. Go parts of the country, they're kind of friendly until you get to know them, and that's just a front. They're ready to stab you in the back pretty fast, and people are different. But I tell you, kindness can speak any language. And true kindness can get through any culture. I've actually thought more people in southeast Missouri, I think we're very rude drivers. It's like in Columbus, they were like too polite. It's like they would stop in the middle of the interstate to let someone go ahead. It's like, go! What are you being so polite for? It's like Southeast Missouri, I feel like, there's some pretty rude drivers here. I think there's a lot of having some kindness in this life. Kindness that goes beyond just letting someone pass you by. Kindness that actually gets people's attention. That's the kind of kindness that we need. There's an 18-year-old man that made the news by forgiving a police officer just a few weeks ago. Police officer, a young lady that had shot his brother, came into the wrong apartment, shot him dead. You might have seen the video or heard the report. What an act of kindness for this young man to testify and to say to her, I wish you didn't have to go to jail. And I want the best for you. And to show that act of kindness, to turn to a judge and to say, can I go give her a hug? Like, no, you're not supposed. For the judge to go, yeah. To let him to go and embrace her. How meaningful do you think it was for that police officer who made a horrible, horrible mistake? How do you make that mistake? I don't know. But even more mind-boggling than her mistake of going into the wrong house and shooting an innocent person is, how do you just forgive someone who shoots your brother? And how do you show that kindness to her? That's the kind of kindness our world needs. And if we actually choose to fall in love with that kind of kindness, I think there's so many other commands that would naturally be obeyed in our life. How do you steal or covet, or how do you not show your neighbor the type of respect that you should if you truly love kindness? Fall in love with it. It's the heartbeat. Jesus summed up the law of the prophets in a different way other than Micah. He said, just love God, love people, which is a great way to sum it up. Obviously, Jesus did it. I think loving kindness might be the equivalent of just loving people. Just want to see people treated in a way that they don't even deserve. And finally, as Micah speaks, he says, I want you to act justly. I want you to love mercy. And now there's a way I want you to think. I want you to walk humbly with God. That's how I want you to view yourself. I want you to realize that He's God and you're not. You're just a mortal. You're just a person. And have this reverence and this fear for who God is. Heresy. All heresies and all heretics have something in common. In my youth, I was very zealous, and I would take on people of heretical faith, especially if they knocked on my door. Oh yes, come right on in. I'd love to talk to you about that. And I always found something odd as we would be discussing. We'd reach a point in which they didn't want to talk about anything anymore, and they were frustrated. And I was having one conversation with one young man who got frustrated and said, I just have a lot of pride. I thought, I'm thinking, okay, it was random. It didn't fit what we were talking about. We're talking about doctrine. And I'll tell you, every heresy has someone who is extremely prideful and obstinate in it. It's just true. Paul writes this to Timothy, that every false teacher is prideful. It's prideful. Because it's unwilling to listen to what God's saying. You just reach a point, and it doesn't matter what anyone says to you. You have to continue down that path. You have to shut down what common sense is saying. And there's something that's good for all Christians to have, is a willingness to learn and explore and to go, maybe I'm wrong about that issue. Maybe I am. I'm not all-knowing. Well, let's explore this together. Let's sit down. Let's teach me. Well, this is what I've learned. Doesn't this make sense? And to have an open mind is the path towards truly following Jesus' teaching. All Christians ought to think this way, and you go, I'm just a mortal who's learning. And some of the things that I believe today might change as I come across new information. And I'm willing to explore and to learn what God's going to teach me. I want to be humble. And I don't want to think myself to know more than I should, than I do. And it's probably a way to think that is the only way to ensure that I'll follow God the whole way through my entire life. Because He sometimes will throw you curveballs. I had a Bible that I had written a lot in. I use my phone now. But back then I had this note in the margin about what this passage meant, and I had written it. And then a few years later, you could see I had X'd it out. And underneath it, I put, no, this is what it means. And then I had X'd it out, and I put, I think this is what it means. And then I had put just some question marks around it. Going, I don't know. I'm still learning and growing. And I share this because I think this is a very big, important aspect of our Christian faith and how we think. If I think myself in a humble light, that I'm learning, I'm not all that special, and I'm coming into people's life, and I'm learning, and I'm being challenged, and I'm challenging, that means I'm on my path to truly seek the truth. And Jesus is the truth. And so if I had to boil down, or if Micah boiled it down for me, what are the main ingredients of our faith? This is what we do. We act justly. This is how we feel. We are in love with kindness. Overwhelming kindness that makes us go, oh, we love it. And the way we think is we realize that God is God. And I'm just a mortal. And if I have to change everything I believe right now to match what he says, I need to be willing to do it. Because he's the one who is God. Let's pray.